Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of Winchester City Council's Planning Committee, taking place in the Walton Suite of Winchester's Guildhall. It is Wednesday, the 13th of August, 2025, and the time is 9:30 in the morning. My name is Councillor Jane Rutter, and I am Chair of the Planning Committee. To my right is the Vice Chair, Councillor Jonathan Williams. Around the table, we have the other elected members of the committee, and we are supported today by a number of officers. Lorna Hutchings, the service lead for the built environment, Daniel Lucas, our legal advisor, the case officers, which will change with many items, and Claire Buchanan from Democratic Services, who supports the committee and operates the recording equipment. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn these on is set out on our website. I need to remind you all to ensure your mobile phones and any other electronic devices are on silent or preferably turned off entirely. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all the instructions given to you by our team. Please make sure you have looked at the handout provided on your chairs or on the information slides displayed as you walked in and during the breaks for further guidance about this meeting. To ensure the smooth running of the meeting, I ask that nobody calls out from the back of the room during the proceedings. In accordance with our public speaking protocols, those who have registered to speak will be able to address the meeting for their allotted time. If there is any disruption of the proceedings and the work of the committee is not respected, it may be necessary to temporarily adjourn the meeting. Finally, can I welcome members of the public to the meeting? Those of you who have registered to speak, I will call you forward when it is your turn to make your contribution. Members of the committee may ask you questions of clarification, so please remain at the microphone until after members' questions. The microphone is turned on by pressing the button on the base of the unit, and a timer will appear on the screen to remind you of your remaining time. Turning now to the agenda. Claire, do we have any apologies or deputy members?
Thank you, Chair. No apologies for absence have been received. Thank you.
Any disclosures of interest, members? Councillor White?
I would like to declare an interest in agenda item 10, given that it's in my ward, but I haven't discussed that item with anybody.
So you will remain in the room and contribute and make the decision? Yes. Councillor Small?
Thank you. Item number 9, it's in my ward and I have previously discussed it, so I'm happy to leave the room.
So you will not participate in that decision?
That's correct.
Councillor Williams? Thank you. Minutes of the previous meeting. Are the minutes of the previous meeting agreed as an accurate record? Is that agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Okay, we now turn to the business items, and first of all, we have to accept the update sheet as an addendum to the report. Is that agreed, members? Agreed. Thank you. Now we turn to the planning applications. So I just want to say at the beginning that we have had an official site visit to item number 7, which is at Willow Farm, Hensting Lane, which was yesterday morning. And I think all members who are here present this morning were at that site visit. And also that item 6, which is the first item on the agenda, has been deferred until September's meeting. So if anybody is here to discuss item number 6, the solar farm at Titchfield Lane, I'm afraid that's been deferred until September. Good. So we now turn to item 7 on our agendas, and our presenting officer. This is application 25-00146 FUL, and our presenting officer is Liz Young. Over to you, Liz. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So before I start, just want to refer you to the update sheet, which hopefully you've all seen. There's a few updates on there for this case. First of all, a neighbour has sent in a list of alternative suggested conditions to those in the report. Condition 21 has been updated to include secure cycle storage along with the other measures. And there are also some additional conditions recommended relating to dark skies, an operational management plan, and also ensuring the proposed outbuilding would be used for purposes incidental to the main holiday let use. Further to the update sheet being finalised, we've also then received a letter with a surveyor's report from one of the objectors relating to land ownership. Additionally, an objector has circulated a presentation to councillors yesterday evening. And then this morning at 8:20 we received a legal note also. So just moving on to the presentation, this application relates to a proposal to replace an existing barn with a new building, which is proposed to be used as a holiday let use of 2 units. The plans also include proposals to carry out various associated works, which include a packaged treatment plant and the reconfiguration of the driveway and parking area. So this first slide shows the location plan for the site, which is identified by the red line. The overall size of the site measures approximately ½ hectare, and it includes part of a wider area of agricultural land, which falls within the same ownership, which is identified in blue, along with part of an unmade private track, which provides access to neighbouring land and also a dwelling which lies to the north of the site. For the purposes of planning policy, the site lies in open countryside. This next slide shows an aerial view of the site, which is where the yellow star is. So the majority of the site boundary where it adjoins the track is enclosed by trees. This includes a row of beech trees on the north boundary and some cypress trees to the east. The red lines show the local public right-of-way network. The nearest footpath is about 160 metres or so to the northeast. There are also Grade 2 listed buildings in the area. These are shaded in pink. The closest of these is Elm Farm, which lies immediately to the south of the site. Also up to the northeast there is Hensting Farm and its associated Grade 2 listed barns. The green hatching shows the South Downs National Park designation. This next slide shows the existing site plan. So alongside the existing barn, which is in the north part of the site, there are various other structures, including a polytunnel, some outbuildings and a container. These are proposed to be removed. This slide also just shows the existing parking area in the existing driveway. This next slide shows the proposed site plan. So the access is remaining in its current position, although this application seeks to regularise a slight increase to its northern splay. That works were carried out at the time of the previous application. The proposed replacement building would be on the same footprint as the existing barn. The parking area would also remain in the same place, but would be reduced in size. There's also a proposed mower shed in the northwest corner of the site. In the event that permission is granted, the conditions in the report would secure the removal of all the existing structures and hard surfacing identified by the red lines on this plan. So this slide just shows the proposed landscape plan for the development. Majority of existing boundary vegetation would remain, along with most of the trees within the site. The conditions in the report would secure the written approval and implementation of a detailed landscape scheme, which would include native planting measures, boundary treatments, and hard surface specification. So this next slide shows the proposed drainage layout for the development. So the proposal would be served by a packaged treatment plant, which would be to the south of the main building. The proposed hard surfacing would be permeable. Surface water would be managed by a soakaway, which is this blue rectangle. The drainage engineer is satisfied that the site is suitable for infiltration-based drainage, subject to details of detailed drainage design being secured through conditions. This just shows the proposed ecological enhancement measures for the development. So these would include enhanced woodland planting along the site boundaries, native planting to the north building, some log piles and bat and bird boxes. Again, these would be conditioned, the implementation of these would be conditioned. The ecology officer is satisfied with the proposed measures along with the submitted biodiversity net gain assessment. Sorry. Right, yeah, this next slide just shows the proposed ground floor plan for the development. The overall footprint of the main building itself would be slightly smaller than the existing barn, although a paved raised area is proposed to surround it. This just shows the proposed first floor plan for the development. Each unit would have an overall internal floor area of about 90 square metres and each would consist of 2 bedrooms. This slide just shows the proposed roof plan, which shows the layout of the proposed roof lights. The update sheet includes an additional condition which would secure measures to reduce light spill from the roof lights. External facing materials would consist of black corrugated roofing, and a solar array would be on the south roof slope. Showing the elevations now. So this first view is the existing and proposed east elevation. The top image is as existing. So this is one of the elevations that would face towards the track. Facing materials to the walls would be a combination of timber cladding and block work with render. This just shows the existing and proposed north elevation. Again, this is one of the elevations that faces onto the track. Again, the top image is as existing, bottom is proposed. Existing and proposed west elevation, so this would face into the site. And then this is the existing and proposed south elevation, which would face onto the parking area and driveway. This just shows the elevations for the proposed mower shed, which is going in the northwest corner of the site. It'd be approximately 3.5 metres tall, and overall footprint would be about 20 square metres. Just moving on to the photographs. This first image shows the view looking towards the junction between the access track and Hensting Lane. So this is the view looking north as you approach the application site. Next image shows views looking along the access as you approach the main site. So the bottom right image is the view looking up the driveway into the main site with the existing barn in view. So this slide just shows a closer view looking through the access towards the barn and the other structures which are proposed to be removed. This is just a clearer view of the south elevation of the existing barn. This photo is taken from the existing parking area looking back down the driveway, so looking south direction. This is another view looking towards the south elevation of the barn from within the site. This is another view looking towards the south with the existing polytunnel in view, which is to the left-hand side. This is a view from the land further to the west, looking east back towards the boundary and the application site. This is a view from the access track where it wraps around the rear of the building. So this is looking towards the north elevation through the existing beech trees. It's another view of the north elevation of the barn, but from further up to the west as you walk along the track. So this final photo is a view from a more distant view from Hensting Lane, looking back towards both Elm Farm, which is just to the left-hand side of the cypress trees. So the cypress trees roughly indicate the boundary of the application site. This was taken in winter. So just to conclude, the recommendation is that planning permission should be granted, as it's been concluded that the proposal is in accordance with both national and local policy, which set out clear support for the introduction of new buildings for holiday accommodation where it conserves the character of the countryside. In the case of this proposal, it's considered that the development design, along with the various mitigation enhancement measures proposed, would ensure the proposal wouldn't give rise to significant harmful impacts on the local environment, highway safety, heritage interests or local amenity. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, my name is Sinead Davis. I'm a barrister instructed by Loxley Legal on behalf of Miss Nicola Dagg and Mr Neil Russell, the adjacent landowners at the Grade 2 listed Elm Farm and the surrounding lands. I have furnished you with a speaking note this morning and indeed last night for an earlier draft, together with 2 appendices to that document, and they've been sent to all members of the Planning Committee, so you should have those in writing. There have been a considerable number of representations which deal with the inappropriateness of this development in this location, and in excess of 20 interested party representations. Particular regard should be had to those which deal with the inability of the applicant to demonstrate the extent of land ownership, access and highways issues, and the failure to lawfully consider the issue of heritage conservation. There are also non-compliance issues with policy MTRA 4 and wider planning policy concerns which render this development in conflict with both the development plan and national policy. So I'm going to focus firstly on the issue of ownership. The track which accesses the property is unregistered. Ms Dagg and Mr Russell own the land on both sides of the track, and the legal presumption is therefore that they own the track too. There has been no rebuttal evidence to that point. Second, to the extent that the applicant has any right to use the track, that track is the right is limited to prescriptive agricultural use only. Again, no rebuttal to that point, despite the issue having been raised since February of this year. Thirdly, the applicant does not appear to believe that he has any lawful right to maintain the track, and I've appended correspondence demonstrating that to my note.
Councillors, through no fault of your own, you're being asked to determine an application which requires trespass on third-party land, and there is no evidence to the contrary before you, which clearly renders it in conflict with policy MRTA 4. Not only is the track not within the ownership of the applicant, but it also fails the minimum requirements of access and tracking. And I draw your attention to the Paul Basham Associates Specialist Highway Note, which draws issues concerning intervisibility between the spur and the wider highway. There are also issues with certificates. There is no basis upon which you should be entertaining this application, and that is not merely a procedural complaint, but a substantive one. The relevant certificates haven't been served on my clients. And finally, then turning to the issue of heritage, case law requires that great weight be given to the conservation of heritage assets. The scheme has materially changed since the comments of the heritage officer were given. Secondly, there is a detailed heritage report from leading national experts on heritage matters. They're actually called heritage matters as well, conveniently. And so to properly discharge your duties, we say that you need to consider each of the assets included in that document, which have not been considered by the Historic Environment Officer. And finally, there are a number of factual inaccuracies in the information put forward on distances. Thank you, that's grateful. That's all the points I had in any event.
Now we have Councillor Susan Cook, one of the local councillors. Susan, as you know, you have up to 5 minutes. Councillor Cook. When you're ready, you know the routine. Thank you very much.
Good morning, Madam Chair and fellow councillors. I object alongside more than 20 neighbours from different households along in the ward. There are 3 key issues today. Firstly, the 2 large semi-detached houses with a floor total space of 307 square metres squared, should I say, over 3,300 square feet in what we call old money. And with the extra new 300 metres squared of parking turning in front of our not small scale and low key tourist accommodation for this site and setting. This is contrary to policy MTRA 4. Secondly, contrary to policy MTRA 4, the tourist development generates inappropriate traffic on the 100 metre of farm track owned by the neighbours at Elm Farm. A Tesco's or whoever grocery delivery van cannot manoeuvre up the track from the highway to the main Willow Farm site without significantly damaging the neighbours' fencing. The pre-app advice was that a passing place was required in the bottleneck zone off the track, but this was removed by the applicant by amendments during his application. Highways has not assessed the neighbour's track for inappropriate traffic. They are only interested in the public highway. The officer has not assessed this. This key role falls to you, the planning committee. It is a 13-fold increase in traffic on the cramped track as estimated by Highways, inappropriate or not. Thirdly, the site layout plan for this cramped and complex site is in complete state of flux. You, the planning committee, have no idea what the ultimate site layout and access plan will be. This is because a workable soakaway field location for the sewage plant effluent has not been identified. No drainage plan has been presented fully, despite the drainage engineers twice in writing saying this needs to be assessed before a decision can be made. No one yet knows which areas of the site are contaminated. And I say that word again, contaminated. No landscape planning plan, including gates, signage, etc., has been provided despite the landscape officer stating in writing, more details please, and that was months ago. And of course, you can't access into visibility or tracking between the entrance to Willow Farm, as we've heard, and the highway until you have the tree plan, landscaping and planning plan, with gates and signage, as I say, for the full 100 metres of the access track from the highway. Without this key information, it would be premature to make a decision, and this matter should be deferred. The applicant, this saddens me. has never approached the neighbours who own the relevant land for suitable agreement for passing place, surfacing of the track or the much needed gateway at the highway intersection, or indeed a right of way along the track for his tourist accommodation business traffic. MTRA 4A4. And what is small scale and low key for this site? The agricultural barn is to be demolished, the 2 new storey houses with ample space provided for extra bedrooms. It is incongruous, discordant and harmful within the landscape. I and every neighbour are left asking the question, why are these not single storey farm cottages or perhaps timber lodges nestled in the site? Instead, on this prominent raised site in the middle of a Hensting Lane is a series of heritage grade 2 heritage buildings and surrounded by farms. Instead of matters getting better during this application, they got worse, and covertly so. On June 23rd, 2025, the applicant added an extended car park. The neighbour's private cramped farm track. Keeping it simple, highways aren't interested in the track. The bottleneck zone at the track is 100 metres long from the intersection from the highway. The turn of events of refuse collection is regrettable. But what I would say, the critical conditions, if rather than defer this matter, as is sensible, you choose to vote in favour of permission, then there are a number of key conditions, and we've heard about some conditions already. Number 1, no residential use, no further tourist units, no additional bedrooms, and no spa, gym or coffee shop. Number 2, a passing place be put in place at the bottleneck zone. If highways confirm there is intervisibility, the required intervisibility to the entrance and a gate at the intersection with the highway. If the committee are mindful to go with the recommendation, I have already spoken to Mr. Cashen, and I would very much like to be a part of mediation with the applicant and the neighbour, because I know that between Paul and I, we could make this work. Thank you, Madam Chair and fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Cook, and thank you for keeping to your 5 minutes. We will ask you questions of clarification, I'm sure, but I think first we've omitted to play the videos that the applicant wanted to show at the end of their. Sorry? Objectors, I beg your pardon. Objectors wanted to show at the end of their presentation. So we're doing that now, I think.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Thank you. I think there's actually sound on that one with the beeping alarms, if I may add. The microphone, thank you.
I think we all know what sound those vehicles make, don't we? Yeah.
If I may, Chair, may I add something that I think is quite important regarding the speed limit of the road? Of course, no, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, do we have any questions for clarification for Councillor Cook? Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned contamination. There's a possibility of contaminated land there. What gives you that idea?
Thank you, Councillor Laming. The purpose or the reason I referred to the word contamination is over a period of time there have been a number of enforcement cases on this particular site where there has been a reason to call out the environmental department, and there was the burning of a substantial amount of tyres and the to bury certain other items that were on site, where the polytunnel is, which we've seen a photograph, which all of you saw yesterday. There were items in there that had also then been buried. Thank you.
Councillor Gordon-Smith.
A couple of things. It has been used for agriculture in the past in some way, hasn't it? The site. And I think also coffin storage was mentioned. Presumably,
It's correct,
that,
yes.
that right still remains, that they could go back to using it for agricultural use in some way.
If I may, Councillor Rutter, Madam Chair, I would like to please, if I may, turn to behind me to the barrister to verify that point, if that's allowed, if that is
No,
permitted.
I think we can check that with our officers.
Or-
I think. Thank you.
Of course, but yes, you
Right.
are correct. It previously owned by members of the family as they.
All right. I think that's
Right, okay, that's fine. I'm just wondering, because on this committee, we've had lots of instances elsewhere of old agricultural buildings being used for agricultural, sort of agricultural purposes, and which have involved quite a lot of truck movement, disturbance and so on. So presumably on this site, that could still happen. I mean, never mind this planning application, but they could go back to storing potatoes and having trucks going up and down.
There was a previous application. I'm just being approached to my right. Is that
I think
permitted?
This is the sort of discussion we need to have with our officers, Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Okay,
rather
fine.
than
Thank
Councillor
you.
Cook,
Right.
because
I
it's a
appreciate that,
specialist
Councillor
question.
Gordon-Smith.
Thank you. If you
Thank
could
you.
return to your seats. I'm assuming there are no more questions for Councillor Cook? No. Thank you very much, Councillor Cook, for your time. Thank you. So now we turn to the supporter, who is the agent for the applicant, Mr. Paul Cashin. Good morning, Mr. Cashin. You have up to 3 minutes, and the timer will start when you are ready. The microphone. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, committee. Over the last 4.5 years, I've been appointed by Lee Purse, the applicant, to do a simple task, which is to gain some sort of lawful use for a building that he inherited, which when he inherited did not have a lawful use because that use diminished when his grandfather passed away. Under normal circumstances, I think this kind of proposition is relatively straightforward because the building exists, access to the site exists, and so I wouldn't normally expect it to be brought to committee. However, we're here today because of the severe level of objection that's been raised by the neighbours. I think much of the objecting is really neighbourly disputes, and I'm here to support the application and answer any questions you have, because myself, Liz Young and the planning department have tried very hard to settle any concerns that have been raised by the neighbours. And I think it's strengthened our case, ironically. There's one more thing I'd like to add. Lee has only ever really wanted to introduce some sort of income from his asset that he inherited. That's it. He has no further intentions to do anything more than generate some money for his family. We think this is the best way to do it. That's simply what we're asking in this application. That's it.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have questions of clarification for the applicant's agent? I've got a question. One of the concerns of the neighbours, clearly from the video we've seen, is inappropriately sized vehicles trying to access the holiday lets. Is that the sort of thing that could be put in the new proposed operational management plan so that it could restrict the size of vehicles that would access the site?
I think so, yes. We're expecting family cars, smaller cars to visit the site when it's rented out to tourists. There's lots of equestrian use in this area. There's lots of reasons why the house uphill needs larger vehicles, I guess, visiting it. In fact, I think there was an Ocado truck that went up there yesterday. But we're not expecting anything larger than a family car to ever need to use the track.
Thank you. Any other questions of clarification, members? Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Sorry, I'm just trying to establish, you said a lawful use for the building. So it was used for agriculture in the past, and this is no longer a lawful use?
The grandfather of Lee had a use that was prescribed to him, which is something that used to happen
Right.
years ago in under planning. He passed away. I think he had a use to run a business, which was the storage of coffins. So trucks would deliver coffins, he would store them, perhaps maintain them, and then sell them on or lease them out. That was a use that ceased when he passed away. And when Lee inherited the land, he inherited it without a lawful use.
Right, thank you. I'm just trying to establish whether he could go back and start using for agriculture and have lots of tractors and what have you going backwards and forwards. That apparently isn't the case.
I believe if this application were not permitted, the legal situation is that it would revert to agricultural use, which is the sort of standard for any site that doesn't have another prescribed use. Perhaps the legal advisor can confirm that.
Thank you. No, unless you want me to clarify the use issue now. Do you want me to? Yeah. So yeah, effectively the only consented use was the previous personal permission, which related to the coffin storage. So as that was personal condition, effectively that no longer applies. So effectively the lawful use of the site would be for agriculture from the planning point of view, effectively. Yeah, if it was in active farming use, that, yeah, depending on the nature of the farm.
You refer to the fact that yeah, the legal advice I would like is that this is not an agricultural building, so therefore it doesn't come under our normal rules on this. This is just a building. Is that the correct interpretation of that? Yeah, but is it an agricultural building or not? Is it? Thank you. May I ask another question of legal? There's a lot of discussion about the legality of the use of the track. Could I ask for legal advice on that, whether that becomes part of this application or not? Thank you, that was helpful.
So, oh, sorry, it's regarding the drainage that's been mentioned. Obviously, our drainage engineer didn't have a problem with it subject to a drainage proposal, but what he did say was that site investigations should take place, and I just wondered if those that testing had happened. And obviously we have condition 6 regarding the drainage plan, but would we expect to see that based on site investigations if they haven't already taken place?
Councillor Langford Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarification. Council said about trespass on third-party land. Are you saying that we don't consider that, or that you are satisfied with the information that we've been given that that's not the case?
Okay, I think Councillor Williams has a proposal to make.
I think for the benefit of all members, I think it might be beneficial to hear that legal advice to propose to go into exempt session in that case.
I'll be seconding that.
Before we do so, Madam Chair, there's a whole procedure for exempt session, so we need to make sure the procedure is accurate and correct. So in accordance with the Local Government Act 1972, Section 100A, you are invited and by resolution to exclude the public from a meeting during an item of business whenever it's likely in view of the nature of the business to be transacted or the nature of the part of the proceedings that if members of the public were present during the item, there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in section 100 below. And then in particularly the actual schedule that is engaged is schedule 12A, access to information of exempt information, paragraph 5, information in which a claim to legal professional privilege could be maintained in legal proceedings. Therefore, I invite members to pass that resolution and we move into exempt session.
Right, so we have a proposal to do so and a seconder in Councillor Laming. Can I see all those in favour of going into exempt session? And those against? Okay, so that motion is passed. So members, we will retire to the Mayor's Parlour for our exempt session.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, if I may, can I ask the case officer to come with me as well? So it will be all members with the case officer to hear the advice. Thanks.
I assume that's acceptable to members? Yes, agreed. And and also the built environment lead, service lead, yes, okay. Those two officers plus members, please, to the mayors. We will undertake to do this as quickly as possible, so I apologise to members of the public and to those listening at home. But we don't want to take this lightly, so we are doing the right thing. Thank you. So sorry about that slight delay, but we're back in the room and ready to continue with this item. So members, questions to our officer on her report. Continuing, Councillor Small.
Thank you, Chair. My question was, it was mentioned about the passing place that was there and then not there. Is there, I don't even know where it might have appeared to begin with. Is there a reason it was taken away?
Yeah, with the passing space, I think it came about just taking things back a little bit at the time of previous applications, because I think it was a suggestion that had been made by the Highways Authority in some pre-application advice. It was sort of reconsidered further at the time of the previous application. So again, looking back, the most recent comment from Highways on the previous application raised no objection to the layout that was put forward at that stage, which didn't include the passing space. The comments on this latest application, you'll see in the officer report, it sort of assesses the issue, but basically due to the amount of traffic experienced on the track, the very low speeds, and also the fact that it's possible to see the end of the track when you're pulling out of the driveway, along with the fact that vehicles would encounter each other at slow speeds on the track. There's no specific issue now raised by Highways, along with the fact that it's not part of the adopted highway network. So in short, if two vehicles do encounter each other, there would be scope for one to reverse, and there's some space to pull off Hensting Lane and to avoid blocking the carriageway if you do have to reverse if you meet another vehicle. So on that basis, and also for the reasons set out in the report, it's not considered that we'd have grounds to refuse it on the absence of a passing space.
Thank you. Any more questions on the report, members? Or on the extra conditions that are being proposed? I think a belt and braces approach is being taken through the conditions that appear to me to address most of the concerns of residents. Okay, so if there are no more questions on the report, do our officers want to add anything else before we get to debate? No? So members, debate. Councillor Williams.
Thank you very much, Chair. I do feel as though this is a small scale tourist accommodation proposal that does meet MTRA 4 in the small scale sites for low key tourist accommodation appropriate to the site, location and setting. It's nearby rights of way. There is appropriate provision for cycling that's been included and conditioned. There are areas to visit nearby in Coldham Common, Marwell Zoo, and routes through to Eastleigh as well. So I do think this is an appropriate development that meets M2A 4. I also feel as though the footprint of the building, the actual building itself is going to be smaller than the footprint of the barn, and then the same size as the barn with the courtyard outdoor area. So I do feel as though this small scale aspect is appropriate. I also welcome the condition of the removal of all the buildings and sort of paraphernalia that we saw in our site visit yesterday. I know there was concerns about raised about the sort of railway carriage being used as a potential new site, and although that's not before us, you know, the removal of that is sort of, you know, conditioned and sort of addresses those concerns as well. In regards to the track issues, ownership, you know, this is sort of a civil matter to be considered and not for us as the planning authority to consider. I feel as though as you're coming out of the track, you can see the junction between Hensting Lane and the track as well. So as you're coming out of the track, you would have good visibility of anybody coming that way. And the applicant has said that the fence would have enough ample space between the junction of the track and the application site for somebody to reverse into that to let somebody pass. in regards to sort of drainage, again, the footprint is going to be the same as the barn building, so sort of surface runoff will be the same as it is now. So sort of, I don't think there will be any substantial harm in having this existing footprint. In fact, the hard surface, hard standing area will be smaller, as detailed in the parking area will be smaller as well. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation for approval.
Thank you. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to say that when we were on the site visit yesterday and went to the property to the north of this, looking down onto the barn, I was concerned about light transmission from the roof lights. So I very much welcome the additional condition of the blackout blinds, and I will also be supporting the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yes, I'd just like to echo the comments that have already been made. I do feel it's low-key tourism in the countryside, which is acceptable under our policies. Also, I think we're trying to weigh up what the harm is between the current agricultural use and the change to tourism. And I think with the conditions we've got, my concerns are mitigated, particularly the extra conditions about the lighting and the operational use, which is now being clarified.
Thank you. Any further debate, members? Councillor Gordon-Smith.
Yes, I asked quite a lot of questions earlier on about the legal use for agriculture and so on, and continuing it in its present form. And I think I, like many other of the councillors who went there yesterday, we were rather appalled about the mess that it was in. And seen against that background, I think a smaller building in good order and with traffic limited to cars, and we all drove, well, most of us drove up there without any great problem, and I can't see any valid reasons to object to it. And there are the listed buildings nearby, but there's not much into the visibility, and that will be reduced when the size of the building comes down. And I think, therefore, I can see no reason to object to this.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you. I can't find absolutely anything to disagree with what's already been said, and I fully approve this planning application.
Councillor Small.
I agree with the other committee members around the table. With all these conditions, I don't see the harm. I think it would add to the community.
Good. So we now move to the decision. So this application is recommended for approval. So can I see those members in favour of approving, please?
8 unanimous.
All members. Thank you. Application is approved. We now move on to the next item on our agenda, which is item number 8, land south of Berwick Way, Winchester in Hampshire. And our presenting officer again is Liz Young. So back to you, Liz. Thank you. If you're leaving the room, could you do so quickly and quietly, please?
Is it on now? Okay. Thank you, Chair. So I just need to refer you to the update sheet, which I hope you've seen. Just one update on this application, just an adjustment to the wording of the landscaping condition, just to make it more concise and to avoid repetition. So the timing of the works is now referred to in criterion E rather than in the text below. So the main requirements are still the same, effectively. So moving on to the presentation. So this application relates to a proposal for a detached 2-storey dwelling to be introduced on some land off Berwick Way in Winchester. This first slide shows the location plan for the site, which is identified by the red line. The overall size of the site measures approximately 900 square metres. It consists of an area of land which lies to the north west of the main playing fields at Peter Symonds College, and it lies within the built-up area of Winchester. This next slide shows an aerial view. The yellow star shows approximately where the site is. The green shading shows the formal open space which covers the main playing fields of the college. The application site itself falls outside of this designation. You've got residential development to the north and the west of the site. There's a children's day nursery to the south. And as you can see, the site is enclosed on 3 sides by quite mature vegetation. This next slide shows the proposed site layout. Alongside the dwelling itself, the proposal would involve the creation of a new access off the road to the north. 3 parking spaces are proposed within the site, which complies with the relevant parking standards. The majority of existing boundary vegetation would remain. The overall footprint of the house itself would be approximately 130 square metres. This next slide shows the proposed elevations. Overall height would be approximately 8 metres. Design would largely reflect the design of existing buildings off to the north and the west of the site. Details of facing materials would be secured through the conditions set out in the report. This next slide shows the proposed floor plans for the development. It would consist of 4 bedrooms, and an integral garage is also proposed alongside the parking spaces. This next slide just shows the tree plan for the development. Apart from the removal of some small C and U category trees, the majority of existing trees would remain. The tree officer is supportive of the proposal, and the proposed development itself, the development footprint, would fall outside of the root protection areas that have been identified. Just for comparison, this shows the current site layout on the right hand side compared with the site layout of the previously appealed scheme, which was dismissed. The main reasons which led to this earlier appeal being turned down related to loss of open space, also impacts on the character of the area. So to address these concerns, 1 dwelling is now proposed, and the layout has been amended to avoid the open space designation. So moving on to the photographs, this first slide just shows the view looking towards the site boundary from the highway to the north. This is again looking from the highway to the north, but with a longer range view looking back towards the application site. This is a view from within the playing fields looking northwest towards the site. So the development is going in this area here. In the foreground, there's the existing sports pavilion. Yeah, this is just a closer view, again looking towards the application site, which is in this area here. So this area here is the parking associated with the children's day nursery use. So this is a view from within the site itself, looking back out across the playing field. So this is the view looking east when you stand within the site. And this is a view looking directly into the site from the playing fields. And this is a view again with the site on the right hand side, and then the children's day nursery off to the left. So that brings us to the end of the slides. Just to conclude, the recommendation is that permission should be granted. The general principle of introducing a new dwelling in this location is in accordance with the development strategy and also government objectives of boosting housing supply. It's considered that the reduced number of units and the amended layout have adequately addressed the concerns which led to the previous application being dismissed on appeal. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Now we turn to public speaking, and our first speaker is Stuart Fawkes, an objector. Mr. Fawkes, welcome. You will have up to 3 minutes, and the microphone is switched on by pressing the button on the base of the unit. When you're ready, the timer will start. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Stuart Fawkes. I'm representing the householders from Berwick Way. We object to this development. So simply carving up a previously proposed development does not address the fundamental issues that caused both the original permission and the appeal to be refused. The proposal still results in loss of open space and amenity without suitable justification. We appreciate the portion of the development that was within the explicitly protected open area has been withdrawn, but policy CP7 of the local plan is not dependent on this so-called DM5 designation. CP7 states there will be a presumption against the loss of open space, except where alternative facilities have been provided or the benefits to the community outweigh the harm. Furthermore, the national planning policy states existing open space should not be built on unless an assessment has been undertaken to show that it is surplus to these two requirements. This parcel of land of open space was clearly not surplus in 2013 when planning permission was obtained for cricket nets. And when our neighbours at number 20 approached Peter Symonds in 2018, they were told that the college was, I quote, unable to sell any of the site and is held in trust for education purposes in perpetuity. And per the City of Winchester Trust's objection, there is still no assessment or evidence that clearly shows that this land is surplus to requirements. The land is also not surplus in relation to the important amenity role that it performs. As the inspector observed, the whole of the site forms an integral part of the existing sports ground. The site openness and mature boundary treatment to Berwick Way make a significant contribution to its amenity value. And laid out to ensure properties have reasonable space, are set back from the road and do not overlook one another. The proposed development is at the narrowest part of the road and at a point where houses on the north side of Berwick Way are lower than street level. The proposed development within a couple of metres of the road is out of character and overbearing. And because of the relatively elevated position, if the hedge is damaged or removed, the ground floor side bay window overlooks the living rooms of the property opposite. If you are minded to approve this development, we would ask that the property be aligned with the design of the rest of the street, with a mass of the house set back from the road. This could be easily accomplished by mirroring the property to bring the garage closer to the street, which would also remove the possibility of overlooking our neighbours. We also note that effort is being made to protect the trees and hedgerows during the build. We would like protection and maintenance of remaining trees and landscaping to be ensured not only for 5 years, but in perpetuity. So in summary, several of the factors that caused the previous application and its appeal to be rejected remain.
We don't have time for your summary, I'm afraid, but I think we've been listening to everything you've been saying. Thank you very much indeed. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for Mr. Fawkes? Can I just ask, oh no, I'll ask the officer, that's all right. Thank you very much indeed, thank you, thank you. If you could just switch off the microphone. Okay. Okay, and next we have Kay Collins, who's the agent for the applicants. Thank you. And you are?
I'm Sydney, I'm the chair of trustees.
Ah, right, okay, and you're there to ask any questions of answer any questions of clarification. That's acceptable, thank you. Okay, over to you, Ms. Collins, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. My name is Kay Collins, and I'm here representing the applicant, the Christ Hospital School Foundation. Some of you may already be familiar with the foundation. It's a charitable organisation that owns the site and buildings of Peter Symonds College, but its role goes far beyond property ownership. So as contributing to the upkeep of college facilities, it actively supports the local community by providing grants to primary schools and offering financial assistance to current and former students in need of support. These funds help young people participate in music, sports, travel and other enriching activities, both within the college and across Winchester. The planning application before you is not just about land, it's about an opportunity. The sale of this small, unused parcel of land will generate essential funds to continue and expand the foundation support for the college, which is an important, high-achieving and highly regarded part of education provision in Winchester and miles beyond. It will also provide additional funds towards much-needed refurbishment of college buildings and the creation of new classrooms and study spaces, as well as helping needy students. The proposal offers clear and tangible benefits to the community with no adverse impact. The land is surplus to the college's educational and sporting needs. It is not part of the playing fields, not public accessible, and contributes little to the visual character of Berwick Way due to the thick boundary treatment. The broader sense of openness along the street will remain intact. Importantly, these proposals directly addresses the concerns raised in the previous appeal, which involved a large area that included designated open amenity space, and also the concerns of impact on character, specifically related to the installation of ball netting that is not now proposed. The current proposal has been carefully revised to exclude that protected land, resolving the sole reason for the earlier refusal. It's worth noting that the appeal inspector found the proposed dwellings in the earlier application to be in keeping with the area's character and acceptable in all other respects, including their impact on neighbouring properties. The dwelling in this application mirrors dwelling 1 from that scheme. In summary, the revised proposal fully addresses previous policy concerns. The new dwelling will enhance the street scene without compromising local character. The development will unlock vital funding to benefit schools, students and the wider Winchester community. This is a modest proposal with a meaningful impact, and I hope you will be able to support the recommendation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, do we have any questions of clarification for the college representatives? Councillor White.
So you said that it's not a designated open space land, or it's surplus to the recreational use for the college. So what is the use of that land then? Is it used, has it been used for anything recently? Or?
Morning, Chair, Councillors. The answer to that question is it is simply there. It's mowed, as you saw with the picture in the report. It isn't used for anything. Planning permission was obtained for it to be used as a cricket nets over 10 years ago now, but that was never implemented, and the college no longer has that need, and it's simply been lying fallow.
Any further questions or clarification, members? No? Thank you very much. You're very clear. Thank you. So, Liz, we come back to you. Do you have anything to add following public speaking?
Thank you, Chair. No, I don't. Thank you.
Members, questions on the report to our officer, please. Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Do we have distances to the nearest properties? I can't see that specified anywhere in the report.
The impact on amenities, let me just have a quick look through, sorry. Bear with me. So the dwellings to the north of the site lie approximately 15 metres from the site. So there's a distance of 15 metres is considered with that distance and the intervening features, and the fact that the dwellings to the north front onto rather than back onto the site, it wasn't considered there'd be a harmful impact.
Councillor Small.
Thank you, Chair. I understand the previous application was dismissed on appeal. I was just trying to scan through the notes for it. Was that mainly dismissed because of taking away from the recreation area, which is no longer being taken away? If I read that right.
There was two main issues. One was the loss of open space, and the other was the impact, it was the combined impact of the dwellings themselves, but also as the agent mentioned, some very high ball stop netting was proposed. I think that was proposed at the time because obviously the layout proposed then would have encroached further across the playing field, so it was considered necessary. So now that the layout's been amended, that ball stop netting is no longer needed.
Can I just confirm that this space is not public open space?
That's my understanding, yeah. So it is, the playing fields themselves are formally designated open space, but they're not publicly accessible.
Any more questions on the report, members? No, if not, then we move to debate. Any debate? No debate. So we move to the decision. So this application is recommended for permission. So can I see those in favour of accepting this application? Again, I think that's all members.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So that application is approved with the conditions on the update sheet. Thank you very much. We'll now take a short break for coffee and return at 11:15. Thank you. Okay, members, if we could settle down, please. We now turn to item number 9 on our agendas, which is land south of Kitnox Hill, Curdridge. And our presenting officer is Ethan Townsend. Good morning, Ethan, and over to you. Thank you.
Good morning, members. Today I'll be walking through the application at the land south of Kitnox Hill, Curdridge, Hampshire, and it's for the temporary use of some existing hard standing for parking for a period of 3 years. As you can see from this first slide, the red line of the site obviously shows the application site. It is within the countryside. It's not within any defined settlement boundary. It's important to note that there's a public right of way to the east of the site by about 100 and 180 metres. And to the northeast of the site is Silver Lake Garage Motors, which is what the parking relates to. I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. As you can see, I just thought it'd be useful to show a historic aerial of the site. So in 2005, you can see that the hard standing is already existing. So it is, by the passage of time, become lawful. At this point in time, it's obviously used for agricultural storage. And you can see, obviously, to the northeast of the site is Silver Lake Garage, which is an established business which has been operating since the 1940s, I think 1946. Here in 2012, it just shows this the agricultural barn on site, which obviously isn't proposed to be used under this proposal, but it just shows how the site's evolved over time. The hard standings was slightly expanded then under that 2008 application. And now present day, as you can see, obviously the site's already started to be used for car parking in association with Silver Lake Garage business. When I went on site, there was no indication that the agricultural barn was being used for such a use. It was still an agricultural use. But yeah, you can see to the north of the site, there are residential properties forming a ribbon of development along the northern part of Kitnox Hill. And there's agricultural fields to the south, east and west of the site. Here's the location plan, just showing further again, the application site is probably not in much detail, so I might just skip on to the block plan. This one would be a bit more useful. So obviously the proposed block plan shows the arrangement of car parking for the site. So it's proposed to be used for 40 vehicles in association with Silver Lake Garage to the northeast of the site. Here, if you can see my mouse, this is the access to the site. So it's off a lay-by off the A334 road. So pedestrians using the site obviously come from their car parking here and have to cross the road. Highways have said obviously visibility-wise displays will be acceptable subject to a condition, and the road, the pedestrian road, not pedestrian road, the pavement runs along the northern side of the road to the to Silver Lake Garage, which is over here. Now we've got some photographs of the site. So obviously on the top you can see the eastbound view, the application site. If you can see the car here, that's the lay-by, so the access to the site is just in here. So all this to includes the site. So as you can see, there's quite a good established screening on the roadside boundary of the site. Similarly, this is not similarly, but below shows the westbound view of the site looking towards the site. You can see a car in the lay-by here. So on the east boundary of the site, there is also an established tree line and vegetation, which provides good screening for the site. Now, these are photographs of the actual site. As you can see on the top left, this is the access to the site. It shows the existing hard standing, and as you can see in the back is the car parking. To the right just shows a view of the access to the site and the road. I thought it'd just be useful to provide some photographs of the other side of the road. So obviously people using the site will have to cross from this junction to access the pedestrian, the pavement. And as you can see, there's photographs in the top left and top right. You can see the proximity to neighbouring properties, front boundaries or access and gate. And then these are just some further photographs of the site that obviously show that it's being currently in use. It shows the parking arrangement as well at the time of site visit, but obviously proposed under this application, the arrangement is slightly different, which would enable for better turning and parking provision and also enable agricultural use of the site. Yeah, further, there's some further photos of car parking on the site, and as you can see in the bottom left photo, this is the agricultural barn that was approved in 2008 on the site. Yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation. The recommendation is to approve, subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now turn to public speaking, and I believe we have Councillor Jonathan Carkeet from, is it Curdridge Parish Council? Yes. Welcome. Good morning. It's still morning, isn't it? Yes. And you have up to 3 minutes when you're ready, and the microphone is switched on by pressing the button on the base of the unit. Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jonathan Carkeet, speaking on behalf of Curdridge Parish Council. I note that the officer's report refers to the objection from Shedfield Parish Council, but does not also record that Curdridge Parish Council itself objected to this application. We do not object to the success of Silverlake as a local employer, but this is not a debate about whether Silverlake is a good business. It is about whether this proposal meets planning policy, and as the planning officer's report states, this proposal does not comply with the relevant policy. This application is here because Silverlake has failed to plan for the growth of its workforce and has already been parking staff cars on countryside land without consent since 2018 and only seeks permission today because enforcement action has commenced. There is no planning policy in the local plan that envisages or supports the use of open countryside for car parking. Policy MTRA4 restricts development in the countryside to that which has an operational need for that rural location. Whether the work of Silverlake itself is essential is not the test here. The question is whether this temporary parking is essential in the context of a rural location. It is not. The proposal also fails to comply with DM10, which covers essential rural facilities, and with DM18, which requires sustainable parking provision. Silverlake has made no serious attempt to demonstrate that it has tried to reduce its parking demand since it first used this site in 2018. There is no evidence of shuttle buses, no exploration of off-site parking in more appropriate locations that are not open countryside. They've not shown they've consulted with the local community to find a solution that avoids using agricultural land. Instead, they've simply taken the approach of using the countryside as an overflow car park, as though it were an infinite resource. The officer's report accepts the proposal does not comply with MTRA4, but then seeks to justify it on planning balance grounds because Silverlake is an important business. But the correct planning balance should weigh more heavily in favour of the planning policies and protecting the countryside and lawful use of a site. If a business fails to plan its operations within its own curtilage, the countryside should not bear the cost. We are also concerned about the environmental impact. The officer's report suggests pollution risks are no greater than for agricultural vehicles, but the reality is quite different. A tractor delivering occasionally is not comparable to 40 cars parked all day, 5 days a week. A properly designed car park would have petrol interceptors, drainage systems to safeguard the nearby watercourse, but no such protections are offered here. The concept of planning balance exists to weigh competing planning policy objectives while protecting lawful uses in their proper lawful locations. It's not intended to justify placing inappropriate use, such as a car park, in the open countryside simply because a business has outgrown its site. Allowing this would turn planning balance into a tool for excusing poor site management rather than safeguarding for ensuring development happens in the right place. Members, granting this permission would set a dangerous precedent. It would say that if you grow your business and park illegally on countryside land, you simply apply and it will be approved. That undermines both planning policy and public confidence, and we therefore urge you to refuse the application.
Thank you very much. Remarkable timing, well done. Members, do we have any questions or clarification for the Parish Council representative? Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. You've mentioned shuttle buses and other locations that could be used for parking. Would you provide further information on that, please?
I think, Councillor, that the question is one for Silverlake as to why they have not considered that. It is not a matter for us. There are clearly more suitable locations and there are the ability to provide shuttle buses by the employer, but there's no evidence that they've considered that. Our point is that if they put forward a sustainable travel plan, they would have been able to use public transport as many other businesses do.
Further questions, members? Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, could you tell me who actually owns the land that the proposal is being made on, as opposed to Silverlake Garage itself?
It's a matter for your policy or officers, I believe.
Yeah, I think the officer needs to answer that question, Councillor Cunningham, in due course. Any other questions of clarification for the Parish Council? No? Thank you very much indeed. You were very clear. Thank you. Right. Ethan, is there anything you want to add before we come to general questions?
I'll try and add some things just in what was raised. I mean, some of it is addressed in the report, like issues with the pollution. Obviously, the environmental health team have been consulted and they have no issues. So it's quite hard to say from a pollution ground that'd be a valid reason to refuse the application. With regards to the principle, I can understand comments with regards to a permanent car parking on this site. It wouldn't be supported in general overall. That's my view anyway. But on a temporary nature where the site is well screened, there is less of a harm and it is mitigated by the landscaping. With regards to the principle of development, obviously we do have to factor in policy MTRA 4. It doesn't strictly comply with it because it's not an on-site expansion. However, policy CP8 does support the expansion of economic businesses within the area. You know, it is an established business, which is a strategic waste management facility. There is obviously issues raised and understandably about the parking situation at the site, but we have to consider, rather than, obviously there's an associated application, we have to focus on this application and the parking proposed here. In the future for that application, yes, there will be issues and considerations with sustainable transport and management, such as the shuttle buses mentioned. But under this application, we've really got to focus on what's proposed, why it's being proposed. I think I'm rambling a bit now, but hopefully that helped.
Thank you. Members, questions on the report? Could I kick things off? So how, it says, I think some of the objectors said that that site is currently being used for a lot more than 40 parking spaces. How are we going to ensure that it's limited to 40?
I mean, so we've condition number 2. Let me just get condition number 2 up.
Condition number 3.
That's it. Yeah, so condition number 3 says no more than 40 vehicles are permitted to park on site. Vehicles should be parked within the allocated bay set out within the car parking plan. So that's really how we're going to restrict the car parking provision at the site. I understand, just in case we get any comments about whether to restrict it purely to staff parking, that probably wouldn't be something that we could enforce against because it'd be hard to particularly identify whether or not it's used for staff parking, but that's obviously what's being applied for here. So with the condition on the car parking, that still enables the site to be used for an agricultural purpose because, you know, tractors can still come in and use the wider site. So it's deemed necessary to have this condition specifically on the number of vehicles and in the bays located.
And did you say that it wasn't appropriate to ask for a travel to work plan in relation to this and the ongoing issue of too many cars coming to this site? Is it more appropriate to wait and make that part? But you see that the application for the expansion of the site is a county council issue, isn't it? So we have no control over that. So I mean, can we ask for a
proposal? There is I just thought it's relevant to state there is 210 parking spaces proposed, 130 customer car parking spaces proposed. So obviously this is just an interim strategy. It's not a permanent solution. Subject to that application going through, then obviously they'd have the parking space. But obviously also in the potential that this application isn't deemed acceptable, it's up to them to decide how they deal with the site and how they manage their existing facility and existing parking. It's not up to us to decide how, but we obviously have to make a decision on the application proposed.
Indeed, for 3 years. Okay, any further questions, members? Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair. The paper shows the applicant being Mr. Prebble. Could you tell me whether the ownership of the land lies with Mr. Prebble or with the motor salvage company, Silver Lake?
The ownership of this land, is that the answer? Yeah, that would be, Mr. Pebble would be the owner of this application site.
Councillor White.
Thank you, Chair. It's just about the temporary nature of it, and how we can be sure that it remains temporary. I know we have condition 1, but I'm not 100% sure if that is enough to ensure that there's no extension to this car park, and what are we expecting the land to return to afterwards? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can understand your points of concern here. My issue with regards to a condition stating it returns to, well, we can't have a condition stating it returns to grassland because the hard standing is a lawful position. They've had that on site for many years. So we can only really request that it's no longer used for parking. I mean, in an ideal world, we would ask for the hard standing to be reduced, but that would not be a reasonable planning condition because of their lawful fallback position. So I think the condition 1 would be sufficient in this instance. I don't know how we bolster it up anymore. Obviously, after the end of a 3-year period, if they're using it for parking, then that would be a breach of condition, but also we could potentially issue an enforcement notice anyway. So there's ways for enforcement to deal with the issue if it's viewed as a concern. Also, I will note, actually, it's not really relevant, actually, I think I've answered it.
Okay, so if there are no more questions on the report, we turn to the debate. Any debate? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Chair. We're just picking up on the last question that was made. It's a real shame that it can't be obviously returned to grassland, and that it does have an established sort of hard standing use. I also I'm finding myself, I completely agree with the parish in their objection. And if this were certainly if this were a permanent fixture, I wouldn't be supporting it. We're in the situation where, you know, they have put in for the temporary 3-year. So I am minded to support it from that. It's obviously, I believe that Hampshire County Council will probably be deciding this within that 3-year period. So if obviously Hampshire County Council rejects the expansion of Silver Lake, then, you know, their current staffing parking arrangements would have to be reassessed. So I sort of welcome that 3-year aspect. The only other thing that I was concerned about initially was the visibility of people crossing, because it is a 50 mile per hour limit there, but there is good visibility with it being a straight road on both aspects. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation for the temporary 3-year permission.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yeah, so I echo Councillor Williams' thoughts on that. I have concerns about the fact that it's countryside location. There would potentially be increased pollution because of the number of cars there. I'm not happy that there's not a sustainable travel plan, but as we've said, the temporary nature of it, as long as it remains temporary for just the 3 years, then that slightly outweighs some of my concerns.
Good. So we now move to the Councillor Gordon-Smith, sorry.
Yes, I must admit, I think it's probably the worst designed car park I've ever seen. If you wanted to waste space, that's the way to do it. And I'm curious about the sort of how much agricultural use is required, and why, you know, if you think of a normal car park with set aisles 6 meters apart and so on, it's a terrible way to do it, and it's a real intrusion. And however, of course, we are talking about a 3-year period and the temporary use. But is there actually any sort of condition that it's going to stop after 3 years? Because I have a sneaking suspicion it's just going to roll on and on and on.
I think that the officer has answered that. It's a temporary permission for 3 years, and after that, if it's still being used for parking, then enforcement will be taken. Good. So we now turn to the decision, and this application is recommended for approval. So can I see those in favour, please?
Unanimous, 7.
So that application is approved. Thank you. We'll have a quick, brief couple of minutes whilst we swap over officers and presentations. Thank you. Okay, good morning, John. And we now turn to the final item on our agendas, item number 10, which is a confirmation of temporary TPO at the Paddock, Clewers Hill, Waltham Chase. And our presenting officer is John Bartlett. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So to give you some background with this case, we received information in March of this year that oak trees were under threat of having overhanging branches significantly cut back, especially with the oak tree in the rear garden of the paddock, which overhangs Chase Field. And the location of the trees is shown here. So T2 to the rear, T1, the oak tree to the front. And these limbs would have caused, the limbs that were cut back would have caused the main structure of the especially the tree to the rear to be compromised. And the people who wanted to carry out the work wanted to cut back the overhanging branches in order to exercise common law rights. These are the aerial photos of the two oak trees in question as well. So the main objection that was received outlined concerns about the overhanging branches overhanging the garden, potentially affecting the lawn, and also concerns about leaf fall and debris, which more especially comes from the tree to the rear. That was the focus of the objection. And also the ivy and deadwood, which is present in T2, and concerns about the overall size of the tree in relation to its surroundings. In response to that, the TPO that's been placed on the tree does not prohibit maintenance from being carried out, and this can be applied for via the usual way with formal application. The consultant tree officer who assessed the trees initially did advise the objector that there were certain works that could be carried out that would be acceptable. However, the works that were under threat of being carried out would have been detrimental to the health and amenity value of the oak tree to the rear, especially. So these are a number of views from outside the paddock, which is along Clewers Hill, and it stands out above the roof line of the properties there, and is quite clearly visible from Clewers Hill. And another more partial view there. And just for reference, this is T1, which was not subject to the main objection, but is another tree that was viewed as being under threat, that we also protected with a TPO, which overhangs Chase Field, and another view of the tree there. These oak trees are especially important for biodiversity and the local character and amenity value of the area, and they can support up to 2,300 species at maturity. And we feel that it's important to control the management of these trees going forward, and they are exactly the type of trees that would align with our tree strategy in terms of preserving these trees in the future. So we recommend that TPO 2358 is confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no public speaking, so members, any questions on the report? Councillor Laming.
Thank you, Chair. How old are these trees, do you estimate?
Yeah, so I would say that especially the one to the rear is towards 80, 90 years, that kind of age, and the one to the front, yeah, probably a similar age, I would say, but they are quite young for their species still. So only valued as being semi-mature at the moment, so it could go on for quite a significant time yet.
Thank you.
Councillor Small.
Thanks. Did I understand that right? Was it the neighbour who was cutting back the limbs that were overhanging his property?
Yes, so the information we received was that the neighbour wished to carry out works to cut back the overhanging branches. I should also say that some of the works on the tree to the rear had already commenced, but we TPO'd the tree before those works could go any further because of the potential detrimental impact.
So if there are no more questions, debate. Any debate? Councillor Langford-Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I will be supporting the officer's recommendation. I think it's absolutely critical that we do look after trees such as this. They will be contributing significantly as we go forward.
Indeed. Okay, thank you very much. I think you've spoken for all of us. So we now take the decision to confirm TPO 2358. Can I see those in favour? So that is unanimous. Unanimous. Thank you very much, members. So that's the end of today's planning committee. I'll see you all in September. Thank you.
Oh.